Number one is an initial discovery, consultation, sales call, whatever you want to call it. An accountability call, a quote unquote coaching session, and then a breakthrough session. So let's break these down in a little bit more detail. Number one is going to be a call that every single one of you would/should at least be having, which is someone is interested in your service and what you've got to offer, the thing that you are providing, and you want to, have them on as a client. How do you bridge that gap? You have an initial consultation session, a discovery session, a sales call, to put it in the back end terms, right? An initial application to be a client for you. That is the first thing that we do. The first thing that we have is that. So jumping on that call, it could be anywhere from 20 to 60 minutes. It really depends on the value of what you're offering. And, if it takes someone more than 20 minutes to make a decision on a, $50 coaching session, it's like, well, probably is not the right fit. But, if you're selling a coaching package for, $4,000 or $5,000, maybe it is closer to 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes to, adequately give the time to go through things that are necessary, right? So when it comes to that initial session, you're still going through the exact same things that we're going to talk about in terms of the SOAR model and the structure for coaching. It's the exact same process. This is something that everyone's going to have. And then when it comes to your actual coaching, with this, again, there are many different ways that you can structure your coaching, but these are just 3 kinds of sessions that we find typically people will have. Number one is an accountability call. Now, 15 to 20 minutes is generous for an accountability call. For a lot of my clients, and especially within the health and fitness space, like a lot of my calls are accountability calls, because once you've got the plan and the plan's in place, it's really just about being accountable to following the plan. So it doesn't take long. Most of mine are between 3 and 5 minutes. Now, it depends on the kind of coaching that you're doing, whether or not accountability calls are relevant or necessary. So before you guys ask me, what's the best way to do it? What is the best way to structure a program? How many of these calls and how many of these calls and how many of these calls should I have? It depends. Depends on what you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to offer. That's fundamentally it. That's really fundamentally, like, you've got to determine based on what you're looking for, based on what you think your clients might need, based on what your clients do need, you've got to determine that. What is the best setup? So an accountability call, just to keep someone on track, to hold someone accountable to their actions. So if your coaching isn't very action orientated, if it's not something like a health and fitness, or maybe in income, right, tracking expenses in a spreadsheet, or whatever it might be, where it requires a level of accountability and there's a level of action taking, then an accountability call might not be relevant for your coaching, and that's fine. But it's just another tool in your tool belt. Then we've got what we consider a standard coaching session, right? This is this is a quote unquote coaching session. The goal here is for you to get to use this model that we're going to talk about, the SOAR model, and there is ultimately going to be some kind of a conclusion, either for the client with an awareness of what's holding them back, an action step for them to move forward, or something shifting for them. That's really the goal with a coaching session, is for something to change for the client, something to shift, whether there's a level of awareness, a level of accountability, a level of behavioral change. Something needs to shift for them. So we'll go through what that looks like in the structure in a moment. And then finally, a breakthrough session, or what we've called before a personal breakthrough session. Personal breakthrough session. For some people who might be receiving texts, I think that would be a daylight savings thing that's going on. So we'll have to double check that, because daylight savings is still going on here, but I think it's changed for people in the US, and the times and the reminders might be a little bit different. So I'll get the team to look into that. Don't worry about it. Circle, if you're ever confused about what time something might be, Circle will always have the updated and the correct time. When we talk about a breakthrough session, right? For those of you who might have seen or heard from it in within the Fast Track NLP, personal breakthrough session is a big NLP focused breakthrough, which is why we obviously do the NLP as a separate thing, but we do talk about it a little bit. And that is in essence an intervention on steroids, right? Where we go through a lot of different NLP techniques and help someone create an amazing big breakthrough shift in one big area of their life. It's usually a one-off thing that you would do for someone, and you can charge anywhere between $500 and $2,000 for that, depending on what you're doing it for. It's a good 4-hour process, right? It's not a small undertaking. So that's kind of there's many more avenues in that, but every kind of coach will have some kind of combination of whether they're focused on, hey, I'm going to be a big breakthrough coach, or I'm going to be a consistent coach, or we're going to have 3 sessions every 2 weeks, and we're going to focus on these 4 things, and this is what we're going to do, or we're going to be accountable and just going to take action, like the action coach. Like, there's a lot of different ways that you can go down, and there's a lot of times where you won't really know what kind of coach you want to be until you start coaching. But for most of you, you'll know if you want to be, a bit more consistent, a bit more accountable, a bit more big breakthrough, right? Where you want to sort of sit. But all of these sessions, right, you can package them into programs as well. You can do like a 5-day program, a 4 to 6 week, 8 week, 12 week. You can do programs around your coaching. And it makes it sound like it has more structure rather than someone just buying 3 coaching sessions. It's like they're buying an outcome. They're buying an outcome. So you can sell your outcome as opposed to selling the amount of sessions that they get with you. Yeah, you might not do all kinds of coaching sessions. Include them as you feel fit, as you feel is necessary. So this is the coaching process. Got it? Cool. Any questions? Done. Easy. It all went into your unconscious, guys, if I tap it fast enough. Clear as mud. So, this is if you have nothing else, if you take nothing else away from this call, if you've already taken one thing away, amazing. Good on you. You're a high achiever. If you take nothing else away from this call, it's this. And yes, it is in your manuals as well. Thank you, Rachel. It's a nice little image. Caitlin, you don't need to access the slides because all of the slides and all the information in the slides is in the manual, which is in the circle group. So make sure you have that. Page 28. There you go. Page 28. You sunk my battleship. Roger, people pay for transformation, not just information. Yeah, so a great principle around that is information is celebrated, but execution is worshipped. Information is free, but execution costs money. The manual is within Circle, everyone. There's a resources section with the manual for the entire program. So make sure you're in Circle, you're in the Wild Success app in the community. That's where it is. That was the first thing you got sent email for access to. That's where you would have been registering for the calls as well, unless you've been doing it completely via email. But you have an email with a link to join the Circle group, which is our community, with everything included. Information is celebrated and execution is worshipped. The other one is information is free, but execution costs money. Comes back to the point I was making before, where ignorance on fire beats knowledge on ice. Information is great. There is so much information out there. There's so much information out there about trying to lose weight and get fit. So why would anyone ever hire me as a coach? They can just chat GPT and type in, and this is the workout plan that I want to do. The last time I tried to use that, it just kept adding in those like dumbbell tricep kickbacks into every freaking workout that I did. I was like, no, I don't want to spend my time at the gym doing this. I want to bench press. Sure, Jason, amazing question. I'm so glad you picked that up. Let me just adjust that for you. More tricep kickbacks. Get out of here, ChatGPT. So the reason why I share that is because information is abundant. People can look up information everywhere on how to break through, how to do this, how to do that. Until they have the accountability, until they have someone to help them actually execute, it's a different story. Because you can look at something and read something while you're scrolling at night in bed or on the toilet or wherever it is. You can read whatever you want to read. But actually executing on it, or even executing on paying attention to it and being intentional with it and applying it to your own life, if it's something more, metaphysical, having the space to actually talk to a coach about things is a very different story for a lot of people. It's not what they do. That's why it costs money. Because the information is out there. Someone can go out there and create their own diet plan, an exercise plan like that'll suit them, but they don't do it. They wait until they get 20, 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight, and then they're like, oh, maybe I need some help or something, because the accountability that comes with that it's more than just the information. Sometimes the guy's like, oh, one of the guys would be like, lost all these weight. Like, what am I paying you for? And I'm like, because I'm the one who helped you set the plan, and I'm the one who's got you accountable. You weren't going to do this if you didn't start paying someone some money. Execution costs money because it puts something on the line and puts some leverage up there. So when we look at actually having a coaching conversation, the first step before we get into it all is checking in, building rapport in general, right? Now, this is really more important on your initial sessions with someone because you won't have a lot of rapport built with them, but you'll have some rapport built by the time you get to, session number 2, session number 3. You won't really need to be like, tell me a bit more about yourself and, what brought you here and blah, blah. You won't really need that. You want to create trust. You want to build rapport, right? You want to get to know them a little bit. This is often where you'll set your frames. Right? Hopefully Calvin did touch on that, but you'll set some frames and some pre-frames for the session, set some expectations as to what it's going to involve and the boundaries. So you check in, you build rapport. Check in might just be like, hey, how have you been? My coaching calls all start the exact same way with my guys. Like, hey mate, so, how's it going? How's the last week been for you? Before I launch straight into, where are you at and what do you want and what's going on and how come you didn't track your food on this day and what's happening, I'll often just give them the opportunity to talk about it. But, hey, man, how's the last week been for you? Oh, it's been awful. Like we had the flu and this and that. So I'm not going to, go down his throat for not tracking his food and not getting his sessions in because I'm like, well, he's got the flu, right? And that's what that check-in allows you to do. This is almost like the awareness portion of the 4 pillars of outstanding communication. So, well, if I don't know how they've been or what's been happening for them, I can't be aware. So let's start with some awareness. Caitlin, all my clients are virtual. Exclusively. Leave the house? Me? Never. And then, the 4 key elements that all of you need to remember. If you can take anything away from this session, like I said, this would be it. SOAR. Situation. Where are you at? Objective. What do you want? Any challenges? What is holding you back? Resolution. How do we move forward? That's it. That is a coaching session in a nutshell. That is the foundation of any coaching conversation. That is what I always come back to. And you will find oftentimes that you will get there naturally within the coaching conversation. But it's important that you have them in the back of your mind so you know, hey, this is the structure we fall back on. And this might even be what you pre-frame. Just so you know a bit about how today's session is going to go. First of all, I'd love to get a bit of a picture of where you're at, and then we'll talk a little bit about your goals, what you want, and then we can dive into anything that you feel might be holding you back from achieving that. And then we'll talk about how do we move forward, how do we adjust things and change things so that you can get the result that you want. Does that make sense? Cool, amazing. So, tell me, where are you at the moment? What's life currently like? What's going on for you right now? Where are you at? What do you want? What's holding you back? How do we move forward? So the reason why we go through the process in this way is because, much like a GPS, much like your sat nav, your satellite navigation, it first needs to start with, where are you? It asks, where are you and where are you going? And as a result of that, it tells you, hey, by the way, there's a bit of an accident on the freeway going north, so you might want to avoid that. Maybe let's go around this way. Or traffic's just getting really bad now, just thought I'd let you know, maybe take the other roads for a little bit. It can only give you this information if it knows where you are trying to go and where you are. If you don't know what your current situation is, and you're just like, I want to be over there. Well, you don't know if over there is north, south, east, west, or somewhere in between. So in order for us to effectively set any goal, first we need to know where we are. Where is our current situation? And in saying that, there is a fantastic quote around this, which is, be less concerned with your current location as your current trajectory. I'm less worried about a client who's 250 pounds if at the start of the year they were 300 pounds than I am about a client who's 250 pounds who at the start of the year was 240 pounds. It's not necessarily about the current location, but it's about the trajectory. But what we still need to know is, where are you at right now and what are you wanting to achieve? People will very, very commonly ask or start the conversation with what's not working for them. They will very often start by talking about what's not working. But we need to know, not working in what context, based on what current situation, in pursuit of what goal, because with that information, sometimes the problem dissolves and disappears. Because they realize, hey, this isn't actually a problem. This is a temporary set of circumstances that I know by this point in time will be over. And so as a result, I don't need to worry about it. And I've had that happen so many times, where people adequately discuss, so this is where I'm at, this is what I'm trying to achieve, and this is what's holding me back. Because most times they're just like, oh, I'm just really stressed and busy right now, and all they can focus on is being stressed and busy, being stressed and busy, being stressed and busy. Now, okay, cool. So tell me, like, where are you at right now? Oh, right now, I'm studying, and I've got these exams coming up in 2 weeks, and I'm also trying to start a business, and it's all a bit much for me. Like, okay, so what do you want? What do you really want? Well, I really want to, grow my coaching business, and I'm really struggling to do that, and also pass my exams at the same time. And okay, so, what's holding back? I've just got no time. Awesome. So, tell me, after this 2 weeks, after the exams, are you still studying, or is that done? Oh, then they're all done. Awesome. So for the next 2 weeks, you're a bit strained on time. So do you think that for the next 2 weeks, things can be shifted around so that you're less stressed about the exams, and then maybe you do other things afterwards? Oh yeah, no, you're right. Maybe that is, it's like the amount of times by just talking about it, people get out of the situation that they're in and out of the issue. But every coaching session comes down to this. Where are you at? What do you want? What's holding you back? And how can you resolve this? You can say resolution. The other thing we would also say is recommendation. We're not here to help change it for them, but we can make recommendations. We can give suggestions very, very, very lightly, but more often than not, the resolution is going to come from the client. So, let's break it down in detail. Situation. So where are you at right now? What is the current situation or circumstance you would like to work on? Can you describe the situation in more detail? What's currently important to you? How can I help? These are all ways that you can start out your coaching conversation. These are all ways that you can start focusing on the initial point, which is, where are you at right now? What's going on for you right now? This isn't often that large of a section for most people, because they're often coming to you as a coach because they want to change something. They want to get rid of a problem, or they want to get clear on what they want. Are we getting paid for this? It depends. Are you charging for it? What do you mean, are you getting paid for it? Are you choosing to charge for it? That's the question. I mean, I'm not paying you to be in the class, right? This is free. But when it comes to coaching, ideally you are working with a committed client and a paid client. If not, at least someone who's really committed to the process. Because you can get started with some pro bono clients just to get your feet wet and start your practice. Because some people don't feel good enough to charge initially until they get a bit more experience, which I wouldn't recommend. But Calvin will talk a little bit more about the practices around charging and getting started on the business call, which will be in 2 weeks' time, where he goes through the full starting a coaching business. So this is situation. This is where are you at right now. Just getting a temperature check. Just let them talk. This is the easiest part of the session. You just sit back and you let them talk. What do you do with a client who is obviously depressed and discouraged and feels multiple things are priority and multiple things are obstacles to progress? I don't normally answer too many questions. I'll answer this one. There's a difference, guys, between saying a client has clinical depression and saying, oh, this client is obviously depressed. That's your perception. They may not have depression. They may be feeling down. They may be feeling stressed, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to refer on. Like that's not, oh, this client seems down, I'm going to refer them on. Well, fuck, that's why they're coming to a coach in the first place. There's a difference between feeling down, feeling stressed, and having clinical depression. And having clinical anxiety. And actual post-traumatic stress disorder, not, oh my God, my crush said no to me, I've got PTSD. Right? This current fucking generation things. Use of the phrase. So as with anything, you run through this process. After situation, we then look at, hey, what do you want to achieve? What do you want to achieve? DeAndre, you're more than welcome to send me a bill. Otherwise, I'm going to talk the way I talk. When you start running the programs, you can talk for however succinctly you like to. What is the outcome or objective you want to achieve? How will you know when you've achieved your objective? What would success look like for you in this situation? What are your motivations for achieving this objective? So what we're looking at here is what do they actually want? And this is, again, a common area where people start to talk about what don't they want. We want to get clear on what do they want. What is it that you're trying to achieve? Then we want to chunk down. We want to get clear. How will you know when you've achieved this goal? If someone tells me, hey, my goal is to lose weight or my goal is to save money. Cool. Did you buy a coffee today? Or no, I saved $5. Amazing. You saved money. Congratulations. You hit your goal. Oh, that's not what I mean. Well, then be more specific with what you mean. And that's what we want to do for people. How will you know when you've achieved this goal? This is what we call within NLP, if you've done that one, this is called the end step or the evidence procedure. The evidence procedure. How do I know I've achieved the goal? How will I know when I've achieved the goal? If you don't have a clear idea of what that end step or that goal actually is, you'll never achieve it. It's like if you're just saving money for the sake of saving money for no end result, for no end final goal. I'm just going to save money until, I wonder how high I can get that number in my bank account. Well, I mean, look, it's not a video game. You're not playing for just a high score number on a bunch of pixels here. You're doing it for a reason. So we can ask questions like, what would success look like for you in this situation? And then what we want to do is we want to get leverage. So we want to ask sort of like, why is this important to you? AKA, what are your motivations for achieving this objective? What are your motivations for achieving this objective? Why are you wanting to achieve this? Why do you want this, right? That's fundamentally, this is objective. What do you want specifically? How will you know when you've achieved it? And why is it important to you? If you can tick those 3 boxes, you're good. That's objective. Now, a lot of people will struggle to set a big enough goal usually for themselves, they'll struggle because they don't think it's possible. They maybe don't think they're worthy. They don't think that they know all the skills and tools and things that they need in order to achieve it. How important is this objective to you? How important is achieving this goal to you? This will help flush out if there's any other competing priorities, right? Whether it's values or things that, are different that come up that, but this came up and this was important and this was important, this was important. Cool. So this objective was like 4th tier down. If someone tells me, hey, losing weight is really important to me, or getting fit is really important to me, and they make 0 time to train because they're at work, it's cool. It's not because, I'm not saying that it's not important to you, but work is more important, or more accurately, the things that work provides. Because it's not about the thing, and this is a very, very important point for everyone. It's not about the end result in terms of a tangible thing. It's not about, I have $1 million in the bank. It's not about, I have a 6-pack, right? Well, it's about, what does those things mean for me? Well, $1 million in the bank provides me security. It provides me abundance. It provides me freedom, right? It means that I can provide for my family, which brings me a sense of joy and love. That's fundamentally what we're after. We're after the experience. I don't want abs for the sake of abs. I want them because then I can feel proud. I can feel confident. I can feel energetic. I know that, having, maybe not 6-pack because you'd probably be drained and tired, but, I know that being leaner than having a pot belly, I'm going to have more energy. I'm going to be able to run around with my kids and play with them and have more energy and excitement and joy and love in my day because I'm able to do those things and I don't have to be the dad who's tired on the couch in the corner. So it's about, what is the end result? About what is the end result? So that's objective. And then the big one that a lot of people jump to before they go through what is important, guys, look, could we stop sharing the workbook, asking for the workbook? The workbook is in the Circle community. You can get it at the end of the call. If you spend half this call trying to find the workbook and get the workbook and ask people to share it, those people are sharing it. You're, as much as it's great and amazing those people have been sharing it, it's taking away from your ability to pay attention to the program that we're trying to teach too. It's session number 3. If you haven't found the workbook yet, you've got to take a bit more ownership for your education like we talked about in step number 1. It's in the resources in the Circle group, which is the community, which was emailed to you when you first registered for the program. It's all the information you need in order to get that. Number 3, any challenges? What obstacles or what challenges do you anticipate in facing in achieving your objective? What have been the biggest barriers for challenges in the past, right? The best predictor of the future is the past. Are these challenges more significant than you achieving your goals? What are the circumstances and choices that lead to these challenges? What are the circumstances or choices that led to these challenges? So when it comes to any challenges, this is when we want to have that awareness, we want to have that clarity, we want to help the client get that clarity on, cool, what specifically is holding you back here? Not vaguely, I hold myself back. Well, yeah, obviously, there's no one else. It's not like a fight in a movie where someone else is like, hold me back, like this. It's not happening, right? You are the one who's doing that to yourself, obviously. I'm not the one who's putting limiting beliefs in your head going, you're not coming to me every day going, I really want to start a business. I'm like, no, I know you're not. Of course, it's you. Let's be more specific. Let's get clear on what you feel is holding you back. And we'll talk a lot about that next week. Not next week, next call, which is in 2 days on Wednesday, when we talk about the WILD method. So when we're looking at any challenges, we're looking at what is holding them back. What are the roadblocks? And I want you to remember the question. How is this a problem for you now? Because some people have a problem or something they think is a problem. They'll hold on to it. Despite talking about where they're at right now and what do they want, they still hold on to what that problem is. Oh, but this is my problem. Okay. But in the context of what you just shared about where you're at and what you want to achieve, let me ask you, how is this a problem for you now. Because it might not be a problem for them right now. So if you can't see the link, that's a great question to ask. It's a great question to ask. How is this a problem for you now? And we're not asking it in a condescending fashion. We're asking it in a I want to know fashion. And this is something I really want to embed into all of you is you are seeking knowledge. You are seeking understanding. Because if it doesn't make sense to you, it probably doesn't make sense to the client once they say it out loud. I really want to achieve this. So what's the problem? Oh, Margaret at work keeps taking my parking spot. And well, how is this a problem for you now? And what this question actually is, it's a very sneaky way of getting clear on like, how is this actually tangibly impacting you in regards to what you want? And they either go, oh, look, it just sets me off on a bad tone and then I struggle to get my emotions back in check. And then, I'm really inconsistent for the rest of the day and I feel like it flusters me and then I get home and I'm exhausted from the emotional back and forth. Okay, cool. So there are elements of your emotional management that we then need to work on. Right? Now, that's not what I would say to the client, but that's the kind of the pinpoint for you is like, all right, well, this is because, we can't change Margaret. No, Margaret's not coming to us for coaching. I'm not here to coach Margaret. Apologies to all the Margarets out there. But I'm here to coach you. So what can we do differently in order to achieve the goal? What can we do differently? That's what it's about. What can we do differently? That's the fundamental thing. This is why it comes back to, how is this a problem for you now? How is this a problem for you now? Yeah, the replays are available. They're all in, you guessed it, the circle group. How is this a problem for you now? That's fundamentally any challenges. And then, this is the big point a lot of coaches get caught up in. This is where we think, I need to have all the answers. However, you do not. You do not need to have all the answers. You need to have the questions. Based on the situation, this is a very obvious way of saying it, just for your own awareness. Based on the situation, objective, and challenges, based on everything we've shared, what recommendations or what solutions can you come up with? What do you think you can do differently? What steps can you take to move towards your objective? What resources or support do you need to achieve your objective? How will you hold yourself accountable for taking action? And then we can assign some potential homework that might be helpful, or we can use some NLP techniques to help sort of clear what's going on. But when it comes to resolution, what we're really looking at, I'm going to type this out in the chat so everyone has it. What do you need to do differently, in all caps, in order to achieve the goal / let go of the challenge / move forward? Keyword in there is differently. There's a great quote by Jim Rohn. Is anyone familiar with Jim Rohn? No? Jim Rohn is one of the godfathers. Oh, a few people good. Thank goodness. Whew. I was getting worried. We're losing him. He was the mentor of Tony Robbins. He was, I think, an early sort of adopter, I believe, of Herbalife. He was one of the godfathers of personal development, right? And there's a great principle from him, which is for things to change for you, you have to change. Or more accurately, it was, for things to change for you, you have to change. For things to get better, you have to get better. It's kind of more his cadence. I haven't listened to an audiobook from him for a while, but that's roughly the cadence, right? It's like, don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills. Don't wish for less challenges, wish for more wisdom. So what we're looking at is how do we do things differently in order to achieve the goal? Because the assumption is that everything else is not going to change. We have to assume that work is going to stay the same. They're not going to suddenly ease up our workload and give us a pay rise. That Margaret's going to keep parking in our spot. That the kids are still going to be messy and confrontational and frustrating from time to time, right? We've got those assumptions. So how can we show up differently? Or what do we need to do in order to show up differently? Or maybe it's just the awareness that it's on us and that we are the ones who need to be the ones to do anything different in the first place and stop expecting other people to change. Right? It's the whole I can fix him mentality. Well, just find someone who doesn't need fixing in the first place. You're spending the same amount of time, same amount of money on it. Get something that isn't beat up. That doesn't require 2 years of relationship therapy to make work. Yeah, oh, get to work earlier than Margaret. Boom. Right? We don't just tell her that, but, hopefully they come to that conclusion themselves. If they love that parking spot so much. Or, fall in love with the new parking spot. So we're not here to give the solution. We're here to help with a resolution or recommendation by directing them towards their own internal resources. Now, I might butcher your name, Lapisha Gross. My biggest thing is learning to listen without interrupting others while they're speaking. I had that problem for a while as well. For me, again, as with any behavior change, it's all about changing it to something else. For me, it was changing it to a deep breath. And even if I felt like I wanted to really acknowledge something, I would just go, and just take a deep breath to that was my way of, and still is actually my way of suspending. If I want to feel like I want to say something, but they're still talking, I'll take a very big, deep, intentional breath, and then occasionally just say, or if they shared something deep, Perfecting your that's the next level of coaching. You learn that at the mastery course, by the way. We do a whole session on just all the different I'm having a little bit too much fun. But yeah, taking a deep breath is always a really good way to help with that suspension, help with that pause. Especially when you get to the resolution standpoint. Remember, this is the thing. You do not need to be the one with the answers. That is joy. That is hurrah. Right? And if it's like, well, what do you think you need to do next? What's the next step? What's one thing that you can do to move the needle forward? What's one change that you can make? What's one thing you can do differently? Or one thing you need to be aware of or move or shift? Oh, I don't really know. Awesome. Well, maybe that's the awareness that you need. So, the next time this situation happens, I want you to write down how you feel afterwards and then maybe what you could do differently in the moment. Right? This is essentially, that's a mindfulness practice. Even if it's in hindsight, you're being mindful. You're going, cool, let me practice mindfulness in the past and go, well, how did I feel? Right? That emotional journaling of how did that make me feel? What was coming up for me? Sometimes it's hard for people to think of it unless they're in the moment. And so sometimes my homework for people, my resolution has been, hey, I just want you to bring a little bit more awareness around these moments where you are feeling particularly stressed or upset or angry, and I want you to notice what's happening around them and how long it's going on for and all that kind of stuff. And then we'll check in on that next week and we can have a bit of a bigger conversation. And that might be the resolution. Now, people ask, how long should you spend on each section? And I want you to see each section as an accordion, right? It can contract and it can expand as much as is necessary. It can expand and it can contract as much as is necessary. Stephen, you can get overwhelmed during listening. I think a lot of people can, for sure. When people are dumping a lot of stuff And that's why suspending is really important, and giving yourself the space to suspend and the permission to suspend. And just go, hey, there was a lot in that. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing is always a great, like, if someone's shared a lot, you can just go, thank you for sharing. There was a lot in that, and I want to make sure that I have, I take the conversation in the direction that will be most helpful. So I'm just going to take a moment and think about all the things you said, or even if just one particular thing stands out for you, just hold on to that and go, all right, well, I know you mentioned this. Tell me a little bit more about that. Yeah, a lot of the reason that you're feeling overwhelmed is because there's so much and you think you might need to say or address or want to say, and you're focusing on you. But when it comes to session timing for everything, again, you could spend 10 minutes on situation, 10 minutes on objective, 10 minutes on the challenges, and 10 minutes on the resolution. You might, or you might need a lot more time focusing on the objective, because their big problem is they don't know what they want. Their big problem is that they have no idea what their goals are. Or they don't know with clarity what the specific end steps are, and you need to help them get there and help them chunk down and question and get into the nitty-gritty details. And so that is just as valuable of a session. You might use up all of your time in a session on that and go, cool, well, look, next week we'll talk about any of the challenges or things that you might be dealing with. And next session on Wednesday, we're going to go through that wild method. So this is in your manuals as well, but this is something that we teach in the Impact program. We look at the model of accelerated change, which is like an advanced level coaching session, more so with the NLP side of things, where we gain leverage, gather information, expand possibilities, then do the change work, right? Change the internal alignment stuff, clean up, link to the future, and create a supportive environment. This is like an advanced session, right, where you start with gaining leverage, right? You want to create a reason for them to want to change, gather information about what's going on for them, help them expand and see different possibilities, and do all that kind of stuff. That's more of an NLP thing, but it's something that we cover in a bit of a greater detail at the Impact program as well. So what I want you to do as a bit of an activity going on from here, from like a homework perspective, or for you guys to just do with each other or to share, is run the SAW model with a client or a family member or a friend. Run the SAW model with a client or a family member or a friend. Do this as your homework, your practice, so to speak. Where are you at? What do you want? What's holding you back? And how can you move forward? And I want you just to, rather than try and solve anything for them, just to try to identify the core issue that's holding them back from creating the results. And there's 3 segments, 3 areas that we'll kind of lump these into. Number 1 is a compelling vision, right? A goal. Number 2 is their internal alignment, their self-belief, their emotional state, etc., etc. Or is it proven strategy? Is it they just don't know what the right actions are to take? What tools could potentially help shift that problem? And then I want you to post up into Circle with your insights from that session. Even if it's just a bit of a brain dump from how that session went, what you did well, what you could do better, how it went. We want to know. We want to know. So basically just run the SAW method. And coming up on Wednesday, we've got the wild method. It's probably hard to read because that's what we're going to cover on Wednesday. But this is our 3-part method, our compelling vision, internal alignment, proven strategy. Essentially our 3-step coaching sessions, like 1 session on compelling vision, 1 session on internal alignment, 1 session proven strategy, that will cover anyone's problem. Anyone's problem in any area. No matter what problem someone is dealing with, it will fall into one of those 3 areas. And that's the beauty of the method. So, I want to say thank you all so much for joining me. Thank you for appreciating the tangents and the rambles and the different directions